Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about waiting and asking for help. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, when have I waited too long to ask for help? And the short answer is when you have entered panic mode or spaghetti mode. That's another one that I like to use. Let me explain. So spaghetti mode or panic mode is what I call it when a developer has had their brain shut down and now they're so out of ideas that they're basically not even thinking anymore. They're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what's gonna stick, or like they're in panic mode. They don't know what to do, so they just do random things to see what's gonna happen. This usually happens when you have exhausted all the possible options that you have, or you feel at least like you have. If you've spent it long enough, if you sit on a problem for long enough and you can't progress and you exhaust all the Googling skills that you have and you go to Stack Overflow and you ask a lot of questions on the internet or for yourself and you try to experiment and you just can't figure it out. Then you're going to, the first thing that's going to happen is that you're going to be faced with this sensation. All right, now and this is where you're going to show your colors. So now you're going to ask yourself, okay, should I continue without asking for help? Because I feel like I should, and these are usually a few options that usually go through people's heads here. First thing is they think, oh, my coworkers are going to think poorly of me if I can't do this myself. Or they might think that, oh, well, no, I don't want, like, my pride, I'm too proud to go and ask for help. I feel like I'm gonna let myself down, or I'm gonna let the company down, or I'm not a good developer if I ask for help or something like that. You have something like this latch on in the back of your head. And for some reason now, because you have already hit the wall, you're going to try to push it even further because of some reason. You have some emotional thing sparking you and you just don't want to ask for help. That's when you get to that point and you just start trying random things. That's where you waited for too long, at least if you ask me. You see, the reason why I argue this is because now you have entered a situation where you are no longer thinking all that much about how to solve the problem. You're most likely in a situation where you're just panic trying to get something to shake loose so that you can get it to work. Now, sometimes you have to do this. Sometimes you have no idea how something works and then you kind of have to add some log statements or you run the debugger or just move a code around or comment out code or stuff like that just to get a hook, as I call it. A hook is just, oh, something happened here that made sense to me. An example of when this can be useful is when, let's say that there's a bug or something explodes in your server and you have a stack trace and you look at that stack trace, but it doesn't make any sense to you. There's no reference in the stack trace to any code that you know of. Well, then you're kind of screwed, because if you don't have a line number from where this is actually happening, this is usually something that happens when you have a lot of third-party libraries. Oh, random library X did not like to dispatch undefined. Good luck with that one. Hopefully there's a nice GitHub thread somewhere where someone else has had this issue and you can kind of read up on it. But if they don't have that, you're gonna have to use your black box skills and figure out how another developer has thought about their code that they write, without actually knowing how it works. Or you can check the source if you're really, really hardcore. Anywho, that's when you get to that point, when you have some error, you might want to just play around with it, like put some log statements somewhere and just see if you can find something. Like, let's say something blows up in another part of the code if you just move some stuff around, and then you have a reference to where you can go in order to figure this out, right? But that's a productive state of mind. But a very unproductive state of mind is where you get to a point where you have really no idea how to do this well, and you're just kind of panic. This is where some people copy paste code from Stack Overflow and just see if it can work, because like you're not thinking anymore. You're not actually processing the the problem. You're not consciously thinking about, oh, I should do this, I should do that. Your brain is just kind of going, shit, I have no idea what's going to go, what's happening here. This code here that I find on Stack Overflow or like somewhere seems to be kind of the thing that I'm looking for. Let's just copy paste that and see what happens. Like now if you're in that mode, you have waited way too long, my friend. You should not be afraid to ask for help. Like the sweet spot for asking for help is almost always going to be something that stands in proportion to the problem that you are solving. If you're asking for help every 5 minutes and you don't actually do your own research, you don't try to really solve the problem, you don't try to Google things or like figure things out, you're just asking for help because it's easy, then you might annoy people around you because they feel like you're not actually putting in any effort and you're just asking to get answers handed to you, or more or less. That's not a good thing. What you want is to do your due diligence. It's kind of expected from anybody, like regardless of what they do. Like if someone comes and you ask them for help, then you expect them to have done like what they can on their end to make sure that so that you feel like they have put in a significant effort here, and I can see that they need my help here. But if they're just calling you in because it's easier for them to delegate to you than it is to do it themselves, then it doesn't really feel well. It's sort of, let's say you're going to help your friends move and you come to their apartment and they haven't packed away a single fucking thing in a single box. That feels a little bit, I mean, they could have put things in boxes and they could have done this and so forth. For some people, at least I feel that way when I've helped people move. I feel like, oh, now you're not really respecting my time. I feel like, now I'm just going to have to hang around or maybe put some things in some box here when we could have just been moving. You could have done this before. It's the same sort of thing, right? So what I want you to take away from this is that you have usually waited for too long when it comes to asking for help when you go into panic mode or spaghetti mode, where you're now just so desperate to solve the problem that you're not actually learning from solving the problem. You're just either copy pasting code or putting random things in, or things that sort of make sense, or maybe you're just adding code that you saw somewhere else without really understanding how that code actually works. This is a very dangerous state of mind to be in, because you can produce severe bugs or other sorts of problems if you do this. So if you get to this point, you have waited for too long. You should ask for help immediately so that you can do a little bit of rubber ducking or something like that, so you can get some ideas. Sometimes you need to try random things because you have a problem that really does require this. As I said, usually this is when you have a stack trace or something like that from a third-party library or something like that, where you don't really know what's going on. You need to do something random to just see if you can change the error or see if there's some other reference to something that gives you a hook, so you have a lead to follow into, figuring out what that bug is about. But usually what you want to go for is to do your due diligence. If you have a really, really small problem, make sure that you try to fix it before you ask for help. If you have a really big problem, try to progress as far as you can until you get to that point, as I was saying, where you hit the wall, you don't really know what to do now, and then ask for help. As long as you respect your coworker's time, it's all good. Then you should ask for help. Have a great day.